I never thought I'd see my wife with another man's tongue in her mouth while I was standing 5 feet away holding 2 beers. If you'd told me a week ago that this would be my Saturday night, I'd have laughed and said you had me confused with someone who didn't know his wife like I did. But there I was, rooted in place on the edge of a backyard pool party, watching my wife of 8 years kiss someone like she forgot the world existed. The worst part? She saw me. Our eyes met for a second. A heartbeat. And she didn't stop. She didn't even flinch. That moment cracked something inside me. Not just a small fracture, a split right down the middle, like a windshield hit with a hammer. It didn't start at the party. It started 2 weeks earlier, when Mallory decided she was suddenly interested in going to local art shows and wine tastings, two things she used to mock openly. At first, I thought maybe she was just growing into new interests. People evolve. I didn't think much of it until she started dressing differently, not better or worse, just sharper. More effort. Clothes I hadn't seen before. She started wearing her hair down again, putting on makeup even when we were just going to the store. That wasn't like her. Mallory was never high maintenance. She was blunt, practical, no nonsense. Now she looked like she was walking into a photo shoot every time she left the house. One night, she came home with paint on her fingers. Said she helped set up an exhibit downtown. I asked her who she went with, and she gave me some vague answer about new friends from a Facebook group. I asked her their names. She shrugged. Does it matter? I didn't push. But it did matter. Not because I cared who they were, but because I knew Mallory. She never did vague. If she couldn't explain something, it was because she didn't want to. The next day, I went through the kitchen trash. That's how far gone I was. I didn't find anything. No receipts, no notes, no clues. Just coffee grounds, food scraps, and a flyer for a gallery called Studio Haven. I looked it up. Small place, local artists, big on community events. I drove by it that night. It was closed, but the lights were on inside. Through the front window, I saw silhouettes moving around, people cleaning up, maybe, or setting up for something. I was about to leave when I saw her. Mallory, standing under one of the lights, laughing with someone. A man. They weren't doing anything inappropriate, just talking and laughing, but something in her posture told me this wasn't new. She wasn't just meeting someone. This wasn't an introduction. This was comfort. I didn't confront her. I wanted to. I wanted to barge in and ask what the hell she was doing. But I didn't. Instead, I went home, sat on the edge of our bed for over an hour, and stared at the floor like it had answers. She came home an hour later, humming, like she had the best night of her week. She kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted tea. I said I was tired. I watched her walk to the kitchen and pour herself a glass of wine instead. She sat on the couch and scrolled through her phone, smiling to herself like a teenager. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. She was civil, polite, even affectionate in small doses, but she was checked out. You could feel it when someone's only half there. Her body was home, but her mind was with someone else. I didn't want to admit it, but it was getting harder to deny. I started checking the bathroom for double showers. You know, when she said she just got out but her hair wasn't wet. I started looking at the laundry basket, seeing if her outfits from the night before smelled like cheap cologne. I became someone I didn't like. Someone suspicious, bitter, and paranoid. But I wasn't wrong. It all blew up that Saturday night. One of her new art friends invited us to a backyard gathering. She said it'd be casual, good people, nothing fancy. She insisted I come, said it would be good for us. I didn't want to go, but I couldn't keep avoiding whatever this was. I needed to see it. I needed to see her in that world she'd been living in without me. So I agreed. I put on jeans and a clean shirt and showed up with a smile that hurt my jaw. The place was packed. Backyard lights, acoustic music, trays of finger food on every table. People milling around holding plastic cups and talking about installations, techniques, and some mural someone was funding for a high school. I didn't know a single person there, and Mallory didn't bother to introduce me. She vanished within 10 minutes of arriving, already laughing with people across the yard. I poured myself a drink, stood near the back, and watched. She moved through that crowd like she belonged there more than she ever belonged in our living room. After half an hour, I figured I needed to do something or go insane. So I went to get us both a drink, thinking maybe I could pull her aside, talk, remind her we were still a team. I grabbed 2 beers from the cooler, turned around, and saw her. Mallory. With the guy from the gallery. The same guy from the window. He wasn't touching her at first. Just talking. Then he reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, and said something I couldn't hear. She laughed, tilted her head, and leaned in. And then it happened. The kiss. Right there. In front of a crowd of half-strangers. And she didn't stop. She looked right at me. Knew I saw. And didn't stop. I didn't say a word. I handed the beers to the guy next to me, turned around, and walked straight to my truck. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, trying not to scream. I didn't want to cry. I wanted to break something. I wanted to grab my steering wheel and rip it off. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the house, watching people laugh and drink, like nothing had just shattered. When Mallory finally came home, I was already in bed, lights off. She didn't say a word. I heard her heels hit the floor. Her makeup bag unzipped. The bathroom faucet. The usual sounds of someone settling into their lie. She crawled into bed like nothing had happened. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. And I didn't ask. Because I wasn't ready yet. But I would be. I just needed a little more time. When you see something like that, your wife kissing someone else like she owes them a part of herself, you start questioning everything. Not just that night, but the weeks before it, maybe the months before it, maybe even your whole marriage. That next morning, she acted like she had been out shopping instead of wrapping herself around some guy at a house party we were both invited to. She walked around the kitchen, hair tied up, in one of those oversized shirts she liked to sleep in, pouring coffee like she didn't just make our entire relationship into a joke. I watched her from the hallway, out of sight, taking in the way she hummed to herself while scrolling through her phone. She didn't look ashamed. She didn't look bothered. She looked like someone who had already moved on, like she had left me a while ago and forgot to mention it. I stepped into the room, and she didn't even flinch. She looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "You want coffee?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her. She didn't like that. Her smile fell off her face like someone pulled a string. She set the cup down, still calm, and leaned against the counter. "You're not going to talk about last night?" I asked. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It sounded flat, like I was asking about the weather. She tilted her head like she didn't understand the question. "What about it?" "I saw you. You kissed him." Mallory didn't deny it. She didn't bother with the usual nonsense people try to throw in your face when they're caught. She just sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It wasn't like that," she said. "Then explain it." "We were just talking. It got a little too friendly. I didn't plan for that to happen." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. You didn't plan for your mouth to land on his face in the middle of a party where your husband was 10 feet away? She frowned like I was overreacting. "I'm not going to stand here and be interrogated. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. That wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate." She crossed her arms. "All right, fine. It wasn't a mistake. I don't know what it was. It just happened. We've been disconnected lately. I felt like a ghost in this house." "So that's your excuse?" "I've been a little distant, so you found someone else to play with." "I didn't find someone. I didn't plan it. It wasn't some affair. You kissed him, Mallory. In public. In front of me. You didn't stop when you saw me. You looked me in the eye and kept going. You want to tell me that was spontaneous? That was an accident." She didn't answer. She just looked down at the floor. Her silence told me more than any sentence ever could. "Who is he?" I asked. "His name's Eli." "How long?" Her head snapped up. "What? How long has this been going on?" "I told you, it's not like that. We've only talked a few times. He's part of the studio team. He's just easy to talk to." "Do you talk to him about things you should be talking to me about?" "I tried talking to you. You've been cold, distracted. You barely look at me when we're in the same room. And you think that gives you permission to turn to someone else?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." She walked past me, picked up her coffee, and headed for the patio without another word. I stood there, feeling like the floor was about to give out. That was it. No apology. No tears. No trying to make it right. Just excuses wrapped in calm detachment. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel much at all. That night, I packed a bag. Not because I was leaving permanently, but because I needed to get out of the house before I said something I'd regret. I went to stay with my friend Curtis, who didn't ask any questions. He handed me a beer, turned on the game, and let me sit there in silence until I felt like talking. When I finally told him everything, he leaned back and shook his head slowly. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "Do you still love her?" "I don't even know who she is right now." "Then don't do anything until you do. Don't leave angry. Don't stay because you're scared to leave. Figure out what you want before you make a move." I knew he was right. So I stayed at Curtis's place for a few days. Didn't answer Mallory's texts, didn't check social media, didn't talk to anyone else. I needed quiet. I needed to figure out if I was done, or if there was anything left worth saving. By the fourth night, I was leaning toward one answer. But I needed one last piece of the puzzle before I made my decision. And that meant going back into her world. I walked into Studio Haven on a Thursday afternoon, 2 days after I'd left Mallory at the house. The sun was still high, and the place had barely any visitors. It was quiet enough to hear the echo of my own footsteps across the polished concrete floor. I didn't come there to cause a scene or yell or get dragged out by security. I came for clarity. I needed to see who this guy was. I wanted to look him in the face and see if there was any trace of guilt or if he was just another guy pretending morals didn't apply when the door was open. There were 3 people setting up a new display in the back, one of them a woman with short blue hair and 2 younger guys arranging paintings. I scanned the room until one of them turned and made eye contact. He knew who I was. I could see it right away. It was in the way he paused, in the way his posture stiffened slightly before he forced himself to relax. That had to be him. Eli. He walked over like nothing was wrong, like we were just 2 regular people meeting over business. Hey, he said, pretending not to know what was coming. Can I help you with something? I know who you are, I said calmly. And I know what you've been doing with my wife. His face didn't change much. Maybe he was good at hiding it. Maybe he'd done this before. We haven't done anything, he said. You kissed her at a party. In front of people. In front of me. I didn't know you were there. That makes it better? He took a breath, like he was about to give me some well-practiced explanation. I held up a hand. Save it. I didn't come here for your version. I came here to see you in person. To know what I'm dealing with. He looked like he wanted to say something more, maybe justify what happened, maybe make excuses, but I didn't care anymore. I turned to leave, and before I made it to the door, he spoke up. She told me you guys were on the rocks. That you barely spoke. That you didn't even sleep in the same room anymore. I stopped, not because it surprised me, but because hearing it from him made me realize she had rewritten our marriage to justify whatever they were doing. That's not your business, I said without turning around. And if she gave you that story to make herself feel better, that's between you and her. But next time you're thinking about putting your hands on someone else's wife, remember that not everyone walks away like I did. Back at Curtis's place, I didn't say much about it. He asked how it went, and I just shook my head. He didn't press. That's the kind of friend he was, never pushed, just waited until you were ready. But something shifted in me after that visit. I'd gotten what I needed. I'd seen the guy. I'd heard what he thought. And now it was time to go back and finish what I should have done the moment I saw them kiss. I went home that night without warning her. When I opened the door, Duke barked from the living room and rushed over like I'd been gone for months. I scratched behind his ears while Mallory came around the corner, pausing when she saw me. You're back, she said. I didn't plan on staying gone forever, I replied. She watched me carefully, trying to read my face, probably trying to figure out if I was still angry or if she could slide back into pretending it wasn't serious. I've been thinking, she said. About everything. So have I. She looked nervous. Good. She should have been. She walked to the table and sat down, gesturing for me to do the same. I stayed standing. I'm not going to drag this out, I said. I went to the studio. I met Eli. I didn't do anything, but I wanted to see him. I wanted to look the man in the face who thought kissing someone else's wife was fine as long as she seemed unhappy. She looked away, folding her hands in front of her like she was bracing herself for whatever came next. You lied to him, I continued. Told him we were falling apart. Told him we didn't even sleep in the same bed. That never happened, Mallory. Until you made it happen. I didn't lie, she said quickly. I told him how I felt. I've been lonely, Derek. You've been gone emotionally. You stopped talking to me, stopped asking about my day, stopped noticing anything. You didn't talk to me either, I said. You didn't ask what I was dealing with. You didn't care that I was stretched thin trying to keep everything together. I didn't stop being a husband. You just stopped being a wife. She looked like she was going to argue, but nothing came out. She just stared at the table. I'm filing for separation, I said. I'm not sure if this is fixable, and honestly, right now I don't even care if it is. I need space to think. I'm moving into a short-term rental until I figure out what the next step is. So that's it, she asked. You're just walking away? I stayed when you checked out. I stood by while you changed everything about your life and left me behind. So no, I'm not just walking away. I'm walking out because I should have done it the night I watched you kiss him. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't beg me to stay. She just sat there, stunned, like she hadn't thought it would go this far. I packed a few more things and left. This time, it wasn't just to cool off. It was to start preparing for the end. I moved into a small, fully furnished rental on the other side of town, not because it was nice, but because it was fast. I didn't want to stay in a hotel and didn't want to crash on someone's couch again. I needed my own space, even if it felt like a temporary cage. The first night alone was quiet, but not peaceful. I lay in that unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling, hearing every creak of the place, every distant car, every thought that kept trying to drag me back to that house and to Mallory. I wasn't sad in the way I expected. I didn't cry. I didn't feel hollow. What I felt was a tight grip of pressure in my chest, the kind you get when you've been holding in too much for too long and don't know when it's safe to let it out. I had no idea if we were heading toward a divorce or just a long separation, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going back to how things were. A few days later, she called. I didn't answer. She texted twice, and I ignored those two. She showed up at the rental that evening. I heard the knock, looked through the peephole, and stood there for a few seconds thinking about whether to even open the door. I did, mostly out of curiosity. You're really not going to talk to me, she said, stepping inside without asking. She looked tired, like sleep had been just as hard for her to find. I don't know what you want me to say, I replied, keeping my distance. I want to talk. You walked out before we really said anything. We said plenty. No, you spoke. You told me how it was going to be. You didn't ask me how I felt, what I wanted. I sat down on the armrest of a chair and looked at her. So go ahead. Tell me. What do you want? I want to fix this, she said, voice shaking just enough to notice. I want us to get help. Go to therapy. Work through it. You should have thought about that before opening the door to someone else. I told you it wasn't like that. It was one kiss. One public kiss that you didn't stop even when you saw me. You keep trying to minimize it like that makes it better. I'm not minimizing anything. I'm just trying to be honest. It was wrong. I crossed a line. But I'm here, trying to fix what I broke. I don't know if it's fixable. You didn't just betray me. You humiliated me. You told someone else private things about our marriage that should have stayed between us. You built your connection with him on the ruins of what we had. She looked down, her arms crossed like she was holding herself together. So what now? We just walk away after 8 years. I'm not deciding that today, I said. But I'm not pretending nothing happened. I'm not pretending we can sweep this under the rug and go back to the way things were. I'm taking time because I need it. And you need to figure out what you really want, because if it's just to patch things up so life feels normal again, I'm not interested in that. She nodded slowly, stepped toward the door, and paused before leaving. Can I call you? Just to talk. I'll think about it. She left without another word, and I stood there for a while after the door shut. Her visit didn't bring any clarity. If anything, it made things messier. I didn't want to hate her. I didn't want to see her as some villain. But she wasn't who I thought she was anymore. And that was the hardest part. That night, I finally called my brother, someone who knew me better than most and didn't care about being polite when something needed to be said. I told him everything, what happened at the party, the studio visit, the confrontation, the separation. He listened without interrupting. So what are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know. I feel like if I take her back, I'll never look at her the same again. But if I don't, I'm throwing away 8 years. 8 years where she was probably faithful until now. Unless she wasn't. You don't really know. That's the problem. I keep running through every moment trying to find the signs. And now I question all of it. Then stop doing that. You'll drive yourself crazy. You need to figure out what kind of man you want to be after this. Are you someone who forgives, who rebuilds, who accepts the ugly parts of someone? Or are you someone who closes the door and moves on? Either choice is fine. But don't stay stuck in the middle. His words stuck with me. I didn't sleep much that night either, but for once it wasn't because of the noise. It was because I was finally starting to admit something I hadn't before. I was already planning my revenge. And this time, it wasn't going to be some dramatic outburst. It was going to be slow, careful, and very deliberate. I didn't plan on letting her feel the consequences immediately. That would have been too easy for her to rationalize. If I'd screamed, if I'd broken something, if I'd made a scene, she could have flipped it back on me and played the part of someone trying to salvage a marriage while I was losing control. Instead, I waited. I gave her enough time to think I was slowly calming down. I took her calls again. We talked, nothing heavy, mostly surface-level stuff. I listened while she told me about her day like we were friends catching up, not two people standing in the wreckage of a marriage. I pretended to be unsure, hesitant, open to counseling. She bought it. That was step one. The second step was making her think she still had power over the narrative. I invited her to lunch. Neutral place, somewhere public, somewhere quiet. She showed up wearing the same careful makeup and those clothes that tried too hard to look casual. I was already sitting down when she arrived. She smiled like she was relieved I didn't look angry. "I'm glad you came," she said, sitting across from me. "I wanted to talk," I replied. "We've got things we need to clear up." She nodded like she'd been rehearsing something. "I've been thinking about us. About what went wrong. I wasn't honest with you about what I needed. I should have spoken up before it got to that point. Is that the version you're telling yourself?" I asked, keeping my voice level. She looked confused for a second, then defensive. "I'm trying to take responsibility." "No, you're trying to soften the truth so you don't have to look too hard at what you did. I know I crossed a line." "You didn't just cross a line, you bulldozed it. You didn't stumble into a mistake. You repeated the same pattern, day after day, building something with someone else while I was in the same house thinking we were fine." "I told you I was lonely," she said. "Then you should have told me when it mattered. Not after the damage was done." We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the cafe around us filling the gap. I leaned forward. "I want you to know something," I said. "I'm not interested in saving this just because we've been together for years. If this is going to continue, it'll be on new terms." "What does that mean?" she asked cautiously. "It means I won't be the guy you lie to anymore. I won't be the fool sitting at home while you explore your identity with other men under the excuse of emotional confusion. I told you, it was one mistake. It was a choice. You saw it through. You got dressed, you left the house, you flirted, you kissed him, and then you kept contact after that. I haven't talked to him since you left. You think that makes it better?" "I didn't say it did," she replied. "I'm just saying I stopped." I didn't say anything after that. I just watched her shift in her seat, trying to figure out where this conversation was going. I let her feel that discomfort for a few moments longer, then stood up. "I'll call you next week," I said. "There are some things I still need to sort out." She looked disappointed, but she nodded. I left without looking back. What she didn't know was that I'd already spoken to a lawyer. Not to file yet, but to prepare. I wanted to know exactly what I was walking into. We didn't have kids, but the house, the savings, the business I partially funded when she decided to leave the firm and start her own private legal practice, that was all going to be split unless I played it right. I wasn't going to leave anything on the table. I'd been quiet for too long. I went through our joint financial accounts and started moving my personal income to a separate one. I made a list of every asset we had, down to the smallest details. I made copies of everything: emails, text logs from before I left, even some screenshots from her social media. She had deleted some of the posts where she tagged events with mutual friends, but I had archived versions. It wasn't about revenge at that point. It was about control. I was taking it back. I sent an anonymous tip to a local journalist who had been sniffing around the private lives of some legal professionals for a series on ethics in the industry. I made sure they knew where to look. I didn't lie. I just handed them the facts she tried to hide. A high-profile attorney kissing someone at a public event while still representing herself as married? That wasn't just gossip. It was a breach of the professional image she marketed so heavily. Within a week, her name was floating around in the office chatter circles. I never mentioned it to her. She would find out soon enough. The calls from her started to change tone. She sounded more nervous, less confident. She didn't ask if I wanted to talk about feelings anymore. Now she asked if I was planning something, if I told anyone, if I was speaking to people she knew. I told her no. I told her I was focused on healing. She believed it. I didn't tell her I was coming over that day. I walked in using my key because technically, I still lived there. Duke barked once from the living room and then came running, tail wagging like nothing was wrong in the world. I scratched his ears, then walked past the couch where she was sitting, startled but not saying anything right away. She looked like she'd just gotten home from work, still in her blazer, hair tied back, eyes wide. I dropped a folder on the coffee table in front of her and sat down across from her without saying a word. She looked at it, then at me. "What's this?" "I'm done," I said. She didn't open it. She stared at the folder like it might explode. "Done with what?" "All of it. I'm not coming back. I'm not fixing anything. I'm not trying to understand your side or rebuild trust. I'm not interested in giving it more time or talking it through. I've made my decision." She swallowed hard, but kept her voice steady. "So that's it? Just like that?" "No, not just like that. This has been coming since the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you anymore. This has been coming since you told another man things I should have been hearing. This has been building since you chose someone else in public and didn't even flinch when I saw it. So no, not just like that. I gave it more thought than you gave me in the last 3 months. She opened the folder then, scanned through the pages inside. Her expression changed slowly, realization followed by disbelief, then something closer to panic. You spoke to a lawyer? Yes. You had this ready while we were still talking? I didn't stop talking because I wanted peace. I kept talking because I wanted you to stay blind long enough for me to handle things properly. She stood up, hands shaking. You lied to me. No. I let you think what you wanted. I didn't know you clarity while you were still hiding the full truth from me. I still don't think I've heard everything. There's nothing more to tell. I don't believe you, and I don't care anymore. She sat back down, then grabbed the folder and flipped through it again. You want the house? I want my share of it. You can keep it if you want to buy me out. Otherwise, we sell it. What about the business? She asked, voice quieter now. You used our joint money to launch it. That makes it shared. My lawyer thinks we can argue for half. You never even cared about it. I cared about not being lied to while funding your future. She dropped the papers on the table like they were burning her fingers. I didn't think you'd go this far. Because you never thought I'd stop tolerating it. She didn't respond. She just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen on her before. Like she finally realized I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't one of those guys who threatens to leave just to get attention. I thought you loved me. I did. But love's not the same after betrayal. It becomes something else, something twisted, something you can't rely on. You taught me that. Her hands were clenched now, jaw tight, but there were no tears. Maybe she didn't have any left. Maybe she still didn't think she'd done anything that warranted this kind of outcome. I guess I deserve this, she said. You do. But this isn't about punishment. It's about closure. You made your choices. This is mine. I was trying to fix it. No, you were trying to manage it. You wanted to ease your guilt, not face the weight of what you did. We sat in silence again, just like we had so many times in those last few weeks, only this time there was no uncertainty left. I stood up, picked up Duke's leash, and clipped it on. I'm taking him for a walk. When I come back, I'll pick up a few more things. I'll leave the rest for later. She didn't say anything, just nodded slightly, staring down at the papers on the table like they might rewrite themselves. Outside, the air felt heavy but final. I walked the block with Duke, letting him sniff every bush and post like he had all the time in the world. When I came back, she was still in the same spot. I packed a few boxes quietly, grabbed my coat, and gave Duke a pat before walking out again. She didn't stop me. She didn't call after me. A week later, the news broke about her and Eli. Nothing scandalous, just enough for people to start whispering. The article didn't name names, but the dots were easy to connect for anyone who'd been paying attention. She sent me one last message after that. No apology. No plea to talk. Just a line that read, "You really set this up perfectly." I didn't respond. Because she was right.